And then, of course, we have this big transition moment. And that big transition moment, because there's no other drums, before or after, just sounds so big, and it gets you really excited for the main theme section of the song. Hey everybody, I'm Logan Gabriel. I'm a media composer. Today we're going to be looking into the Three Body Problem theme song composed by Ramin Djawadi. This is for the new series that's on Netflix. It's a pretty good series. It's not as good as the books. Spoiler alert there. But as soon as I saw Ramin compose this, I had to check the series out. This is, of course, the same guy behind Game of Thrones, but also Westworld. And he's done a lot of other stuff. He actually composed the music also for the new Fallout series on Amazon. And I was like, damn, this guy is really, he's everywhere. He's really working hard, which is awesome to see. So we're going to look into this recreation that I've composed in Studio One using orchestral libraries, sample libraries. And we can look into the different parts of this and break them down and see how we can apply some of the things I learned for our own compositions. So I'm going to play, just to start, a brief clip of what my remake sounds like. We'll start at the section where it gets a little bit more epic. Okay, so wow, awesome track. And I think this recreation did a decent job at approximating what the actual track sounds like. So before we get into some of these parts, actually I want to do a quick fun facts here, because as I was recreating this track, I noticed two things that I thought were pretty interesting. So the first is, who can tell me what time signature this track is in? And okay, it's in 3/4. It's said right here in Studio One, and we can hear that even in the beginning. 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I was like 3/4 time. Ramin, I see what you're doing. It's called the three-body problem. It's in 3/4 time. Okay, is it a coincidence? I'm not sure. But another thing is the tempo for this song is also quite interesting. So usually in tempos, composers usually pick even numbers, so 110, 120, 130. For example, very popular house tempo for house music, electronic music, is 128, for example. Now, what is not common is odd numbered tempos. So the fact that this track is 111 BPM is pretty interesting. 1 + 1 + 1. You can do the math. It's 3. Did he mean to do that? Is he sprinkling in little secrets for us composers to find? I'm not sure, but I'd like to think maybe he is. If you watch the series, part of the series in the earlier episodes is about using Morse code to communicate. So maybe this is Ramin's way to communicate with us. Who knows? Anyways, let's get into the track. So some interesting things I think we could see right off the bat is, obviously this show is science fiction. So the kind of track that we would compose for a series like this tends to be what they call hybrid orchestral. It just means orchestral sounds or acoustic sounds, strings, for example, with synthesized elements like synthesizers. And we can really hear that going on in the beginning. So let's take a closer look at that. Here's what the beginning sounds like. So we have really two main layers here. We've got the piano, which I'm sure you can hear. And I'm sure you can hear this as well, but we've got a background bed of synths going on. And this really adds to that sci-fi atmosphere. So let's take a look at what these synths sound like. For me, what I did to approximate the sound, there's 4 different synthesizers going on here. Each has a specific texture. I recorded a few in, some are just VSTs. But when we layer that all together, we create a really nice background that supports the foreground, which is the piano. So just the synths sound like this. And you could hear they're mixed lower in the mix than the actual piano is, but combined, it really makes that piano sound really nice and supported and weighty, which is really nice. And this is quite common in these kind of hybrid orchestral pieces. So another thing that I noticed in this big section, let's listen to that again. So this sounds really huge. It's supposed to have that huge, almost unrealistic orchestral sound to it. And what I noticed was when I was comparing the frequency spectrum of my track with the reference track, which the reference track is actually the official main title track that I downloaded and paid for and I'm using to compare. Now let's take a look at a plugin I like to use called True Balance here. And what we can see here in this lower frequency spectrum is there's a lot of sub bass going on, okay? Much more than you would usually find in a traditional orchestral score. And when I noticed that, I said, okay, I think there's more than just using the contrabasses here, in the strings. And sure enough, if you solo just the low bass, so anything under 100 hertz, for example, you hear this kind of faint pulsing, which I'm pretty sure is just a sine wave. It's just a sub. So don't be afraid to layer a sub under the entire orchestra, because that's also going to give it just a bigger feel than you otherwise would have if you just used actual string instruments. So for me, I've just got this sub that's pulsing under everything, and it's pretty subtle. To be honest, maybe a little bit too much saturation there, but yeah, so you can hear that's just kind of adding some accents there, and it's giving some weight to the entire orchestra. And you can't really hear that in the mix, but when everything's combined. So, the main idea really of this piece is taking this beginning section. Like that rhythm right there is so important. Da, 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 da. And that's why we're kind of punctuating some of those rhythms with the sub bass. And the strings are playing that, and all of that combined together creates a really nice, effective theme. The only other thing that I'll talk about is drums. So there are some, huge sounding maybe trailer-esque drums. I'm using Damage to create those, Damage 2, really popular library. Now, the drums themselves are used pretty sparingly. We really just have this big transition moment, and then we have drums in the orchestral section, but these drums are just adding a little bit of weight to the sound. Again, quite like the sub bass, it's just kind of adding some weight there. It's punctuating the rhythm. And you'll actually find this is kind of common. If you want drums to sound really huge, you might think to add a bunch of big drum hits, but really what you want is contrast. And that's what we have right here in this section. We go from no drums at all to this huge drum swell, a big slam. It leads us right into the orchestral section, where then the drums kind of die down a little bit, and they're low in the mix, and they're just used for weight. So just the drums on themselves, they sound like this. Yeah, so you can see there's not a ton going on there. They're just being used to punctuate the rhythm. And then, of course, we have this big transition moment. And that big transition moment, because there's no other drums, before or after, it just sounds so big, and it gets you really excited for the main theme section of the song. So I think that's really all I'm going to talk about today. I know I've been brief. If you want to see more specific about something, feel free to let me know. I can dive a little bit deeper into this, but I do want to keep it shorter rather than longer. The only last thing I'll say is, and this is a rant incoming, so if you want to skip the rant, skip to the end of the song, or I'll just play the whole thing through. But my rant is, if you go watch this on Netflix, only the first episode devotes time in the beginning of the episode for the opening credits. So this track is about 2 minutes. So we get the whole opening credits and we get the whole track, and it's really nice. Every subsequent episode after that, we get like a 15-second blurb from this track, then we go right into the episode, which the whole reason I wanted to watch this series was to hear this main track over and over. Honestly, I never get tired of it. And instead, Netflix has really shortened that to like 15 seconds, which doesn't make sense to me because they paid top dollar for Ramin to compose this awesome theme, and then they just skip it in the beginning of every episode. So Netflix, stop doing that. Bring back the full opening credit sequences. I don't think it's just composers who want that. I think it's the people, it's the masses. Come on, give the people what they want. When I think about watching Game of Thrones, my favorite memories are really sitting during those opening credit sequences, getting so pumped with the music about what's to come in the episode. So I really think Netflix, you should bring that back. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. I'm going to dip out and then I'll play the rest of this song here. And yeah, that's it. Hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.